Hello Earth, welcome to episode 13 of season 2 of Making Cell, a series of videos where I record myself designing and implementing a programming environment called Cell. If you're tuning in for the first time, I recommend you jump to the first video of the first season or you check out this description of the project, the link of which I will paste in the description. So we're going to continue where we left off yesterday, which is annotating the source code live. Just when you think this cannot get any more boring, I actually find a way to go into a new dimension of boring. But at least it seems to be working for me. I actually also had the idea of annotating some tests. Imagine that. But the point of annotating the code is that I can actually remember much better what I wrote, especially the tricky parts, like this function, which is essentially takes text and converts it into a more manageable internal representation of data, which is paths. So that's why I'm doing this. So I'm going to continue where I left off. I was going through this function called unescape quotes, which what it does is not really an escape quotes. It basically chops off. Let's continue reading what the function does. We know we're matching unescape quotes, right? Let's just read what we did. Yeah. The text starts with double quote. We said start to 0, sure. You know what? I need to read how this function is being used later to really understand the dequoter. And this is even more unreadable. Now let's go back to the dequoter. Is it dequoter? Yeah. So this cannot be that difficult, right? Okay, this basically takes an escape quotes. Yeah, basically this removes the slashes that are escaping quotes. That's what it does. That's why I call it an escape quotes. Yeah. And this so I find where, so I have a text. I have a text that that might have a quote. So I want to find not just a quote that is not a literal quote. Because you have the terminology here is killing me. You have a literal quote, which is, I guess, an escape quote because it's a quote that just stands for itself, and then you have a quote just to delimit something with a space or with quotes inside. I guess that's the purpose of quotes in this syntax I came up with informally, which is I want quotes to be to basically allow me to represent text that has spaces inside or quotes. That's it. Yeah. Yeah. There's no quote. If the quotes, if the text starts with a quote, this is the multi-line. I had forgotten. If there is no quote, we can escape the quotes from text and set it as a text of the output. Okay. So basically, but if there's no quote, there's no. Yeah, it's not there's no quote. It's there's no. Sorry, it's a Friday night. I want to do this, but my brain is a bit fried, and I'm annoyed at my brain for being so fried, which is funny because that's also part of my brain. There are two types of double quotes: literal double quotes, which are escaped by a slash. These really stand for themselves. Quoting double quotes. I call them double because they're this. Quoting double quotes, which are there to surround text that has either has a space or a literal double quote or both. Okay, I feel better about that now. From now on, I'm calling all double quotes just as quotes. Single quotes are not special characters, so we don't have to be overly concerned with them. Got it. Now, never mind. I want to be extra explicit about that. Okay, there. Let's do it later. Thank you for that. Escape. Let's just go. Literal quotes. So these are the literal ones. Yeah, okay, now I get this. Now I'm trying to understand what I'm using this function for. But let's just carry on. If we start with a quote, we set the start to 0. Okay, now we have the start. So if we are here, we might have a quote or not. But if we do have a quote in this text, we already have the match. Okay, for a multi-line, if there's no quotes in the text, we just take the entire text that we have here and then escape the literal quotes from it. Boom. So we have that. Perfect. Otherwise, if the text starts with a quote, we set the output text to an empty text. Yeah. If the quote is not the entire quote is not we take the text before it and escape it. And to the quote and escaped. So there's a bunch of things that I don't understand here. Like, first of all, I want to comment this test that I made that breaks everything with the slash. Where is it? Is it this one? Okay, what's going on here? Yeah. Okay, bust. So let me try to do something here, because it's offending me to have this. Can I do this? Yeah, I can do a slice that has nothing. I could just do this. Unescape literal quotes. I don't understand why I have to treat the part that is not inside multi-line text so differently. I honestly don't get it. But we'll see it. So I can just do this. Output text is an escape literal quotes of text slice from 0 to output start. This already covers these two cases, because 0, 0 is and if it's -1, I would just do if it's not -1, it will be output start. Otherwise it would be simply text length, and we have only one line. Do the test still pass? Yeah. See, when you start to use annotated source code, you think more cleanly about the code. I honestly don't know why I haven't gotten the memo yet and do it from scratch. This is the same thing. output text equals text, but I'm not escaping the quotes. Why? Because if I am inside multi-line text, I'm already inside something quoted. That's why I need to match up until the... that's an interesting one. Wait, let's write what I just did, right? We are already inside a single text surrounded by quotes. And I forgot about something here, which is has a space, a new line, a little curve, or at least one space, or yeah, I forgot new lines, of course. So we take all the text up until the first unescaped literal quote. No, not literal quote. Will be, what was it? The quoting. This is non-literal quote. Unescape it and put it in output text. Nice. This is a much better way to look at it. If we are not inside multi-line text, we are looking for all the text up until the first quote. This logic is still the same. This one is also the same. And this is the same, right? Yeah, it's the exact same. Wait, no, sorry, it's not the same. It's not escaped, right? Unescape. Well, I'm not unescaping anything here, but it doesn't matter because there's not going to be any quotes, because if we're here, there's no quotes in this line. Actually, there could even be literal quotes there. No, there couldn't be literal quotes because we're not inside a quote. See, this is what happens when you don't write a parser. You end up writing a parser anyway. Okay, let's try, instead of trying to second guess what I did, which is probably quite second guessable. I'm getting confused here. We just take text and we set the entire text to be the text. if we are not inside multi-line text and there is a quote, this is probably the most common case, I guess. Well, more common than this. We match the text up to I think something that's killing me is to understand that the index of the quote is perhaps not 0, but like, I don't know, 2 or 3. When would that happen? Like, let's say you have a line that has a quote in the middle, something delimited. Yeah, I still need to understand how this function is being used, and I haven't done that. Can we do it today? Maybe. We find a second we try to find a second quote, a second non-literal quote that closes the first one. So I basically go at the index, so let's say it starts at 0, I would start at 1, so whatever is to the right, yeah, exactly. If there is a second non-literal quote, we set end to its index plus 1. So it's basically after the. So I wonder if this chops off just the second quote or even the space after it. No, I think it's just. Yeah. Here, why the hell did I put infinity? What was I thinking? If text lies, you just do text length. What's going on? That was a bad night, eh? Yeah, of course it's gonna work. It's pretty silly. Some unintentional comedy here. Infinity. What happened to infinity? Um, an escape literal quote, sure. So we. Doesn't this look the same thing? No, because I'm using the start here. That's a big difference here. We set the output text to be the text between the non-literal quotes and escaped. Yeah, that makes sense. Why am I using this thing here? Output n plus 1 with parentheses. This is a ternary, man. Come on. Good. And really, here, if the output end is I'm gonna keep this outside because it's more clear to see it like that. And actually I could just do this. If output start is -1, output text is an escape. Yeah, this is better. Else. In the end, this made sense. That looks cleaner. Mm-hmm. We return output and close the quarter. So you know what I want to do? I want to understand the data that goes through this function, right? So I'm gonna do this. Okay. And I also need to be so you start with a line that has multi-line here with a quote. It starts at 0, ends at -1. You get a mine. Okay, this makes sense. Then you get multi-line trickery. Sorry, not. Okay, there. Have trickery. So you start with multi-line mode. Out of this, so you start at 8 and you return, yeah. Well, on start and end, it would be nicer to put the first quote and the second quote, right? Because really, gives you the literal, the non-literal quotes. I have here calm, and you get the text. So it really does two things. It locates the non-literal quotes, the first two non-literal quotes, and whatever is between them, it gives you the unescaped version of it in case it has literal quotes. Like for example, this one, on this one, on this one, I'm an alien. Yeah. Yeah. This all seems to make sense. Just want to print the output in a different way here. Just always start, end, and text. Always, always. When there's no end, I get everything. When there's no start, I wonder if there's a case where I have something with no... I never get the results with no quotes. I wonder if I call this function only when I have... Yeah, I only call the quarter when I have a quote, that's why. I remember this was the hardest part to write of the function, dealing with the quote there. I have good news though. This is the end of the function, the actual end. So I wouldn't be surprised if we find one or two more bugs by the end of reviewing this function. But if you get a -1 here, let's just follow the logic for a second. Let's say we just get the entire text here, and we don't dequote it because simply there's no quotes. So this is what dequoter does. This function takes and does two things. Gives the indexes of both of the first and the second non-literal quotes on the text. If any of them are, if one of them is missing, instead of an index, we set its index to -1. Gives the text between the non-literal double quotes or before the Yeah, when the quote starts later in the game, we get whatever was before. Yeah, I really need to understand this. I just need to read the definition again. Basically, if you are inside a multi-line text, you're inside a quote. So in that case, we don't look at the end. We never look at the end. We just look at the start. We look at the first quote and give you the text up until that. However, if there's a if we're not inside multi-line text, we try to find a second non-literal quote that closes the first one. In that case, we return the text between them. Let me try one thing though. ABC slice 1 3. Yeah, it will still work. No need for infinity there. Come on. I think I need to put on some Nirvana. Can we do that? Yeah. Yeah. Nirvana. Yeah. It was never mind that I wanted to listen to. Yeah. But I want to skip this one. Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Yeah. I get it. Gives returns text and escapes the non-literal double quotes from a portion of the text. If we are inside multi-line text, we only look for the first non-literal quote and return the unescaped text between the beginning of the text and the first non-literal quote. If we are not inside multi-line text, we return if we're not inside multi-line text, we return the text between the first and second non-literal double quote. If the second one is missing, we give it until the very return all the text until the end. Right? Let's just check that. Let me actually comment out some of the debugs. If inside multi-line text, let me just look at the harder case is this one, when it's not multi-line. Let's just get rid of this. 0 minus 1. Yeah, that's the beginning of 1. It gives you everything. It always gives everything. No, it doesn't give everything. Look at this. I have foo bar 1. I just give foo. Exactly, between the first and the second. What I do not see is an instance that I'm passing something that doesn't start with a quote. So I'm not going to find a quote at the index. Look, all the stars are 0, man. It took me forever to realize this. But all the stars, it never starts at 1 because of how I call this function. Because of the way we use this function, if we are not inside multi-line text, if there's is a non-literal double quote, it will always be at position 0. So you don't have to worry about input like whatever and then quote foo happening. Although the function in practice handles it. It just gives you foo as text, ignoring whatever. Instead of saying whatever, we could just do never mind, right? I know it's 2 words, but the space is semantic here. This was more involved than I thought. Honestly, this first and this start should be called really first, honestly. Can I do that? Yeah, let's do it. It still works. Nice. I'm gonna wrap up soon, but I'm glad I made some progress today. Okay. You know what? I changed my mind. It's too long. Sorry. As a good friend said to me one, sorry, not sorry. Okay, I get it now. I get it. Okay, so this is the quarter. could be called something better than the quarter, right? Something like match quotes. So, next up, for the next session, if we're inside multi-line text, I'll just quickly read what this does, I think, which is basically run the quarter. If there's no quote, we just append this to the last path, the whole thing, to the last element of the last path, and just be done. Boom. We're done with this line. Otherwise, we basically chop off the part that we match, we add it to the previous one, and then we get out of the multi-line text. We update the last path, and then we go into normal parsing logic. This is brilliant. This is I like this. I think the most subtle transition I've done here in this function. Yeah. And then, because it keeps on going, there's no return, see? And this one is much nastier, because if you don't look at the quotes, look, it's very easy. You match spaces, you check that there's no weird spaces here. Skip, don't mind this. You split, you find the first space. If there's no errors, we actually just add that to the next line. Yeah. Yeah, this is easy. So if we crack this nut here, we understand the function. This includes a transition to going to multi-line text. And the rest is really, I think, quite easy to understand. Yeah. And then we can modify this to, for having the special case of you have a slash and a quote, but that's not an escaped literal quote, with a double slash. And then I wonder if we need to do triple slash and quadruple slash. Let's save that for when I have some sleep. I'll see you next time. Thank you for watching.